All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Have you ever felt totally overwhelmed by just the sheer number of choices in your life? Or maybe you felt a deep sense of being stuck, even though on paper you're doing everything right? Well, if so, you are absolutely not alone. Today, we're going to explore how the incredibly dense, profound ideas of the 19th century philosopher Soren Kierkegaard can serve as the ultimate existential therapy. We are literally going to build a survival guide for modern life.
To kick things off, we actually have to question our core assumptions. Kierkegaard hits us with this wild, upside-down question: what if everything in the world were a misunderstanding? Like, what if laughter were actually tears? Just think about that for a second. What if the very ways we try to cure our modern anxiety and, find happiness are actually entirely backward? We spend so much energy chasing what we think is the correct path, but what if the map itself is completely upside down?
Section 1. The reality of living and why life feels inherently confusing. To figure this out, we have to start by establishing the baseline of the human condition, which, according to Kierkegaard, is fundamentally chaotic, unpredictable, and really rarely neat. We spend so much time treating our modern lives like some kind of complex math equation that needs to be perfectly solved, right? We think if we can just get the right job, find the perfect partner, nail down that optimal morning routine, boom, we've solved the problem of living. But Kierkegaard argues that life is not a problem to be solved, it's a reality to be experienced. We have to abandon this constant need to fix everything and just simply drink in reality in drops, counted one by one, exactly as it comes to us.
He frames the core tension of our existence so perfectly here. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. This is exactly why life feels so confusing. We are forced to make these massive, life-altering decisions blindly into the unknown future. We experience the most painful state of being, which is remembering a future we might never actually have. We only grasp the true meaning of our choices when we look back at them. We're essentially walking into the dark. And yeah, that is terrifying.
Moving to Section 2, Anxiety and Freedom. Let's reframe this modern disease.
If we're walking blindly into the future, well, of course we feel anxious. But what if that anxiety isn't actually a weakness? Instead of viewing our constant worry about career paths and life choices as some kind of defect in our character, we really need to ask if it's actually a signal of something incredibly powerful. We so often try to run past this feeling with breathless haste, pursuing pleasure so fast that we hurry right past it. But what if the anxiety is trying to tell us something essential?
This leads to an absolute mind-bender of a realization. Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. Feeling overwhelmed isn't a disease. It is the sheer vertigo of standing before the infinite possibilities of your own free will. Think of it like this. When you look over the edge of a steep cliff, you get dizzy not just because you might fall, but because you suddenly realize you have the freedom to jump. That is exactly what anxiety is, the overwhelming realization of your own freedom.
And that brings us to what Kierkegaard calls the ultimate. He tells us that whoever learns to be anxious in the right way has learned the ultimate truth about living. It's all about harnessing this dizziness rather than just running from it. If you can stand in the dizziness of your own freedom and not look away, you preserve your mind. Section 3, Escaping the Herd and the Trap of Numbing Out.
Standing in that dizziness? Yeah, it's really hard. So naturally, we try to escape it by seeking safety in numbers, numbing ourselves out, and entering a state that Kierkegaard flat out calls despair. But with a bit of defiant, sharp humor, he points out that blending in is basically the worst thing you can do for your soul. If you want to be loathsome to God, just run with the herd. Because once people label you, they negate you. If you just become a carbon copy of everyone else to avoid the anxiety of freedom, you are deeply, deeply lost.
Let's break down how this happens through his traps of despair. First, the despairing refusal to be oneself is a massive trap. People settle for a level of despair they can tolerate, and here's the real kicker, they call that tolerable despair happiness. He warns that happiness is actually the greatest hiding place for despair. We deceive ourselves, and honestly, of all deceivers, we must fear ourselves the most. We settle for this spiritless, watered-down life just to avoid the hard work of actually being our true selves.
Section 4. Finding your true self. Waking up from the dream.
So how do we break free from the herd and wake up from the dream? As Kierkegaard asks, what is youth? A dream. And eventually we have to wake up from it. The most common form of despair is not being who you are. Look, you cannot change your reality by pretending to be someone else. You have to face the hard facts of being exactly what you are, because only by fully acknowledging your true nature, with all of its flaws and all of its potential, can you actually begin to change it. You absolutely have to cultivate the will to be that self that one truly is.
And when you finally open your eyes and see the real world, With all its terrifying freedom, its hidden forces, and its horrors, what do? Well, the best, most authentic response, actually the only intelligent tactical response, is to laugh defiantly at it. The best response to criticism is to smile and forget. You don't cower, you laugh, and you refuse to stop laughing, armed with the utter neutrality of your own spirit.
Finally, Section 5, the leap of faith, choosing passion over idleness.
Okay, so we've recognized our freedom, we've faced our true selves, and we've laughed at the horror. Now we must step into passionate action, because as he says, it is impossible to exist without passion. Kierkegaard notes that hope is a passion for the possible. It is so much better to get lost in the passion than to lose your passion entirely, because being lost in spiritlessness, being completely bored and disconnected, that is the true root of all evil. The highest passion in a person is what actually drives them forward.
So how do we actually activate this passion? It happens in 2 steps. First, reflection. But here's the catch. You cannot logic your way into a meaningful life. You can't just be a thinker, analyzing away the paradox until you're just some detached professor. After reflection, you must dare to take the leap of faith. You have to dare to lose your footing momentarily, because not to dare is to lose yourself entirely.
Ultimately, faith begins precisely where thinking leaves off. The highest thing isn't to perfectly comprehend it, it's to do it. At a certain point, the self-assured believer, the one who thinks they have it all perfectly figured out, actually becomes a greater sinner than the troubled disbeliever if they refuse to venture into the unknown. After all, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
I'm going to leave you with this final, ultimate challenge from Kierkegaard. To be human is not a fact, but a task. You aren't just handed a completed human life at birth, you are handed the incredible freedom to build it. So, are you ready to stop treating your humanity as a given and start treating it as your life's greatest work? Reflect on your freedom, dare to lose your footing, and take the leap. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope it helps you navigate the dizziness of your own incredible freedom.